Logging in the 4,000-hectare old-growth forest is due to start in another 2 weeks. Since logging was halted, talks have been held between the Forestry Commission, the timber industry and the North East Forest Alliance. While the Alliance says it doesn't want to see jobs lost or the timber industry collapse, others say that unless logging is resumed, livelihoods are at stake.
The end user in the town, as far as grocery products and that sort of thing, are all going to suffer, so it affects everybody. People that think that it's not affecting them, it definitely is affecting them.
These fragmented groups are getting around the country everywhere. I mean, it's not only in Walker, it's down at Killicranky. It was Washapil before, it was Shalundy before. They're a fragmented group, a minority group, and they're buggering the whole industry.
A public meeting will be held in Walker tonight to look at the future of logging in the district. It has been called by local businesses and the Forest Protection Society. 1,000 people are expected to attend. It will be addressed by Tony Windsor, the member for Tamworth, Dr Robert Bain from the National Association of Forest Industries, Dr Bill Herditch of the Forest Industries Crisis Coalition and Robin Lloydall of the Forest Protection Commission. Sawmill owners and workers say the logging debate needs to be resolved quickly.
I likened the railway to Werris Creek, the timber industry is to Walker. It is Walker, really. It's the provider of most of the income for the businesses and the provider of jobs. And particularly at a time of recession, I wouldn't like to see those jobs placed in jeopardy because there wouldn't be any replacements.
In the industry, there are also concerns about the existence of different conservation groups.
Some of the legislation, some of the environmental legislation that's been put through the House over the last 12 months has been very worrying to me, not only in relation to the timber industry, but also to agriculture and any other productive ventures that we need to pay our way out of the financial mess we're in.
Meanwhile, more than 80 people, including police, SES and National Parks officers, continue to search for 3 bushwalkers lost for 2 nights in rugged bushland east of Glen Innes in northern New South Wales. The trio had become separated from their Pathfinders bushwalking team on Sunday morning in the Gibraltar Ranges and suffered below freezing conditions before being sighted 4 kilometres from where they lost their group.
I think they must have gone down the gully or something, and we kept following the ridge because, according to Gary, he thought that we were supposed to follow the ridge. So we followed the ridge and we kept following it until we got sick of following it, and then we eventually went down towards the creek.
38-year-old Gary Hildebrand and teenagers Cherie Cox and Sarah Hyven, all from the Coffs Harbour region, had survived the cold with a small tent and supplies. Each night the girls had prayed for help. The group was eventually picked up unharmed after searchers noticed mirror reflections and heard blasts from the girls' whistles. Gary Hildebrand has some trekking experience. Police say the Gibraltar Ranges can be a tricky area for bushwalkers. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
For the last few months, the number of jobs advertised in the Hunter has increased.
For the last 2 months, we've already recorded employment growth in the Hunter region, which has been the opposite of the trend recorded for Australia and New South Wales. For instance, in March and April, we recorded 2 months of positive employment growth. That meant more people were employed at that particular time than the same time 12 months ago.
The reason for this, sound economic performance by the region's industries.
In particular, there's been the coal industry that's been supported by the international demand for the type of coal produced in the Hunter. The tourism industry has been doing well because we're located close to our main market, which is Sydney, and also the building industry has been performing well.
Mr Searles expects the employment growth to continue, adding these encouraging figures have been slowly improving since mid last year. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Last year, Diana Wood called for people to knit a woolen square to promote Australian wool. Thousands were sent to her from across the nation and they were sewn together to create hundreds of rugs. Today they were loaded onto an Eastern Airlines flight bound for Sydney and the Salvation Army.
And the rugs will then go to Salvation Army to be given to needy people in every state in Australia.
Diana says the project has been praised for both promoting wool and doing something for the needy. And while the scheme has come to an end, she hasn't made a decision yet about what's next.
For the future, that's something we're not really too sure about. It has been suggested that this should spread overseas, promoting wool overseas through Associated Countrywomen of the World, but who knows?
He's flying out in front. Aitken's right down over the top of him. He's about 3 in front. Thunderstruck.
Travel. Scott Michael has got to the lead. Boxing on was Menadol. Coming again now was Rogers Ramjet. Scott Michael in front. Halfway down the straight trying to get to it now was Sunday's Child. But Scott Michael in front is drawing away. And Scott Michael beats Sunday's Child. Next to go down would be...
The debate over this kilometre stretch of rail between the Civic and Newcastle has taken anything but a straight line. In March, 4 of the council's Labor aldermen, including Lord Mayor John McNaughton, went against party policy by supporting a strategy that proposed ending the rail link at the Civic. But at last night's council meeting, those 4 aldermen stepped back into party line by voting for keeping the link open to Newcastle. So what prompted the turnabout?
I don't think there's been any turnaround at all. It is simply a matter of facing the facts as they appear from day to day.
The Lord Mayor says the council's latest decision will be presented to both the state government and opposition for their support. A spokesman for the Premier's office says the council's decision won't make any difference to the state government's honeysuckle development plans to cut the line here at the Civic. But he believes the turnabout means the ALP aldermen must have been lent on by their state office to toe the party line.
No, we haven't been. We've had no discussions with our head office whatsoever.
Today, the Save Our Rail group was praising the decision as a step closer to retaining the line.
Oh, we think it's a great victory.
But the City Centre Committee, pushing for opening the foreshore to the CBD, is confident the rails will still be lifted.
And the government have said that they're determined to terminate heavy rail at the Civic Centre. That being the case, it shouldn't be a setback.
Remember your first few days at school? For most of us, it wasn't much fun. Well, this new program called Ready, Set, Go may take some of the pain out of that early period of formal education.
There's a problem there and these are things we can do.
The 8-week program brings parents and future students together for a lesson in attention and concentration, learning about independence, tips for improving literacy. The students learn about the library, where to go to the toilet, how to buy some lunch. Unlike preschool, Ready, Set, Go teaches the parents as well how to be prepared. According to the scheme, it's not a case of mum doing the teaching herself, just making the potential student hungry to learn. Old Lisa Ryan has earned her stripes, surfing the Merewether Bar beach stretch for the last 6 years.
It's more a male-dominated sport. I think that's the thing that sort of kept me going, giving those guys a bit of a hard time.
But it was on the weekend at Emerald Beach, Coffs Harbour, that she really kicked. Lisa has won 3 state women's wave ski titles, but the national victory was a highlight.
The presentation was the thing that I remember the most. My family and friends all cheering me on, so I was really happy when I found out I won.
Ahead like countless more hours in the water, Lisa would like to compete in the world titles in South Africa next year, and the Aussie champ is especially keen to retain her crown when the Nationals come up again in '93 on Lisa's home turf in Newcastle. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Murrumbina will open its doors as a regular primary school in 1993. A small group of Murrumbina's current primary school-age students will remain to be integrated into the new regular classes. The school is expected to have about 60 students enrolled for next year, ranging from kindergarten through to year 6, with just 3 classes to begin with.
That's the ideal number to allow very small groups and to make a very workable school.
Additional furniture and equipment will have to be bought for the larger number of students, but the school already has an extensive library and craft and cooking rooms. Enrolment will be open to any students, but those living nearby will be given priority. The school council has already started planning for the new school year, and a public meeting will be held in August to give information to parents interested in enrolling their children at Murrumbina.
What's going to happen is fairly unique within the state, in that all the parents and the staff are pushing for something that is going to be wonderful for the students. And so it's a very exciting time. Rather than look back on the past, we're looking forward to the future.
Stage 1 of the environmental monitoring program is now complete. It involved dozens of oysters being placed at 7 locations along the Hunters coastline, including Burwood Beach, Boulder Bay and Newcastle Harbour. The aim is to measure the impact of sewage outfall on the marine environment and involves the combined efforts of the EPA, Hunter Water Corporation and the Maritime Services Board. So in 3 months the oysters will be collected, their tissue measured for sewage contaminants such as trace metal and organochlorines. This will be repeated 8 times over the next 4 years. Alan Crapp from the EPA says if results show an adverse effect, it could lead to tougher quality restrictions on sewage outfall levels. In other environmental concerns, Mayfield residents met last night to discuss state government plans to control all development projects like Kooragang Island, worth more than $20,000. It currently comes under local council jurisdiction. The group fears under state government control, Kooragang Island will become a pollution hub with little or no regard for environmental controls. The group believes the council will listen to the grievances of residents and as such wants the ruling hand left with council. It intends lobbying state government. Recovery reading targets children who have not developed literacy skills to standards expected during their first 2 years in primary school. It involves one-on-one learning sessions with the student analysing words, sounds and sentence construction. By the end of results from trials in other regions have shown a child to be in the top 1/3 of their class for reading and writing. 65 hunter children are currently in the program. It's hoped many more will soon be, with today's opening of a reading recovery training centre for hunter teachers at the Heaton Primary School in Newcastle. The key to the program is early intervention, identifying the problem during the tender schooling years. But improved literacy isn't the only benefit.
You can imagine how confused and despondent and even a behaviour problem a child may become if in fact they know that they're not coping.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It was a game that never reached any great heights as a spectacle, both sides guilty of making plenty of errors. On the plus side for Narrabri, they did look dangerous when they decided to involve the backline. On numerous occasions, Narrabri swung the ball wide and the attack exposed Pirates out wide. And then a touch of luck for Narrabri. Pressing the Pirates line, Narrabri were able to force the mistake and they were in to score, grabbing the points.
A small group gathered to remember an horrific part of Australian history. This was the site of the Mile Creek Massacre. In June 1838, stockmen drove a group of local Aborigines into the dry creek bed and deliberately slaughtered them. At the time, few white men had ever been punished for murdering Aborigines. However, 7 stockmen were later hanged for the offence, and a border police force was created to bring some law and order to the outback.
The University of Newcastle study indicates that respiratory illness in the city has fallen over the past decade. The study reportedly concludes that a fall in smoking rates, improved air quality and better medical management of chronic lung disease are probable reasons for the drop. But the Mayfield Residents Group is suspicious of such findings. The residents say the talk across the backyard fence is that respiratory illnesses are on the increase and there's a pressing need for a longer-term study.
Starting from infant school, going right through junior primary and primary, and doing this over, say, a 10-year period, so that we've got figures that we then can base answers on, you know.
The commissioners are all employed in tourism and associated industries. Their first stop after the Williamtown airport was a tour of RAF Base Williamtown's Fighter World exhibit. It's just one of a vast array of recreational activities and areas in Port Stephens which contribute more than their fair share towards the $8 billion a year of tourism-generated income for the state. The commissioners will stay overnight before continuing their inspection tomorrow, as well as holding a board meeting at the Roach Racket Resort. Commission Chairman Jeff Wild says the visit to the state's tourism regions occur on alternate months to take the board out of Sydney for a first-hand experience of life on the leisure circuit.